Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome back to my channel. If you're anything like me, you have product that you have splurged on and then it sits on your shelf and collects dust. But today we are dusting some of those products off and we are going to use them to create quick and easy backgrounds. Those products are distress spray stains. Before I jump into this really fun technique, I want to show you the die that I'll be using. This is the Dancing Snowflakes die from Simon Says Stamp, which is part of their Diecember release. I'll be using this on my cards today. Some of the spray stains that I'll be using today include Tumbled Glass, Salty Ocean, Blueprint Sketch, and Brushed Pewter. I'm also going to have a pink and purple mix as well that I'll show you later on. Now, Tim Holtz actually has two types of spray stains. There probably is more, but the two that I have are the oxide sprays and the regular distress spray stains. The regular distress spray stains that I'm using today are very vibrant, so I'm starting off really light with Tumbled Glass. I am using the Tim Holtz watercolor paper so it can hold a lot of this liquid. Now, one of the tricks I have found when using these spray stains is by sweeping my hand across my cardstock when I spray. And after you spray, you want to make sure you clean your nozzle off so it doesn't get clogged up. One of the other things that I like to do with the spray stains is layer the color. So I am spritzing on one color, drying it with my heat tool, and then spritzing on another. Right now, this is my third color. I did first Tumbled Glass, Salty Ocean, and this is Blueprint Sketch. And I'm just layering those colors on, drying in between each one. Now at this point, I wanted to add a little bit more color, so I came back in with that Salty Ocean, dried it once again, and then I'll come in with that Tumbled Glass to kind of have it fade off from dark to light. The spray stains you don't really have to shake up, I don't think. I never did. But something like the brushed pewter or the oxides, you definitely have to shake those up. So I have right now the brushed pewter, shook that up, sprayed that onto my background, and then I'm drying this once again. And this just adds a really beautiful shimmer to it. There are plenty of shimmer sprays you could add to this as well, but I really like this brushed pewter and even has a little flicks of silver in there. Since I was already playing and I had my cardstock out, I thought I would create a pink and purple background here. So I'm starting off with a spun sugar, so it is a really, really light pink. Then I'm going to come in with a shaded lilac in the oxide spray. So you can mix these as well. You don't have to just stick to the distress line. You can bring in the oxides. I am drying in between each color, just like I did before. The shaded lilac I would have honestly used in the regular distress line, but I didn't have it. I only had it in the oxide. The thing to keep in mind when using the oxides is that it is going to leave kind of a chalky look. Now on top of the oxide, I did spritz on some Kitsched Flamingo. Here I'm just really experimenting and playing, and I brought in Salty Ocean. I dried that layer and then bringing in Wilted Violet in the distressed spray stain. Now, once again, after drying that layer, I'm going to bring in that Kitsched Flamingo again. I decided that that spun sugar was just a little bit too light for all the dark colors that I had going on. So I added more of that Kitsched Flamingo, and I thought I would just finish it all the way over to the edge. I liked to kind of leave that white on the very edge, but it was just too dark. I needed to add a little bit more color there. And then after those layers were dry, I once again spritzed on that brushed pewter. So here's a look at both of the backgrounds. You can see it has that really beautiful shimmer to it from the brushed pewter. So I'm going to set these both off on the side to dry and work on some die cutting. I am taking the Dancing Snowflakes die, which all of these snowflakes are connected, and I absolutely love this die. So I am going to die cut it multiple times out of white cardstock that is 110 pound, so I can layer them together to add dimension to my card. So there's all my die cuts, and then I'm also going to bring in the Simon Says Stamp matte silver cardstock and glossy white. This is going to be the top layer. Since I have two backgrounds, I'm going to make two cards. So one will have the silver and one will have the glossy white. And honestly, I really wish I would have just die cut both out of that silver because it is so beautiful. Now at this point, I was ready to work with my backgrounds, but they weren't completely dry yet. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to do. I have my mini Mink machine here that I just turn on with the button in the back, and then I'm setting my heat to 3. I had to brush off the dust from it. So once that is warmed up and your light turns green, I have my parchment sheet here that I'm putting one of my backgrounds in, and then folded side into the mini Mink machine. You want to make sure you're using the folded edge to go first so it's not catching on the rollers inside the Mink machine. So I pulled that out and I noticed that I did had some transfer onto the parchment paper, but it did dry my background really well and it also helped flatten it. So now this time with my pink background, I put a piece of cardstock on top of that, and then I ran that through my mini Mink machine to help speed up that drying process. Now what's really cool is this was kind of one of those happy accidents, is once I ran this through and opened it up, it transferred some of that ink onto the cardstock, which looks really cool for a background. So it wasn't completely dry yet. So I'm going to place that cardstock just right back on top the way it was and run it through my machine again. Now, once I pull this out and remove that cardstock piece, more ink had transferred and it's pretty well dry at this point. I am saving that background because that could look really cool on something. I want to get my card base put together first before I start adding my die cuts. So I have 2 pieces of cardstock here that is a 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring with my bone folder at 4 1/4. So I am making a side folding card. I folded it in half and I'm just reinforcing that fold with my bone folder. I have found that I really do prefer the side folding, so that is the card bases that I'm going to start making from now on. I want to make sure that I line up my panels straight on the front of my cards. So I am bringing out my Misty tool. I'm folding up a little piece of tape and placing it inside my card base to hold that shut. And then I'm lining that up with the corner of my Misty. And I'm going to take one of my panels and I'm using a Simon Says Stamp dot runner, adding adhesive all over to the back. And I do get carried away with the adhesive because I want to make sure it is completely stuck down. Then I could line that in the corner of my Misty and line it up perfectly with my card front. I repeated those steps with my blue background as well. Now off screen, I did go ahead and layer up my snowflakes. So I have about 2 to 3 layers of white cardstock and then my silver mat for this one on top. And I'm taking some liquid glue and I'm adding dots all over the back of this. You could use spray adhesive, any type of adhesive that you have. I had just found that my liquid glue worked really well and it gave me a little bit of wiggle room. I'm not a real big fan of spray adhesive just because it smells really bad and I've never had luck with it sticking. So liquid glue is just my go-to for die cuts. So I put a couple heavy blocks on there and I'm going to let that sit to help kind of get that glue sticking to the background. Then I'm going to repeat that same step for my blue background, adding little dots of that liquid glue and then attaching it to the front. And once again, I'll just grab those 2 big heavy acrylic blocks that I have and let that sit for about a minute or so. Now in my drawer, I have a huge pile of these sentiments from PinkFresh Studio. These are the Perfect Sentiments Holiday Hot Foil Plate. I went crazy one day foiling and die cutting these out, and I have them all in my drawer so I can just pop them on a card whenever I want. So I went through my big stash and picked out a couple that would match. I wanted a really nice shiny silver foil for my snowflakes that I have that matte silver cardstock with. So I added foam squares behind the holiday cheer and then added that to the front of the card. I could also add some sequins or some jewels to the front of this, but I thought I would leave the snowflakes as center stage. So same thing for my blue background. I added foam squares behind one of the sentiments that I picked out and then adding that to the front of the card. So there are my 2 finished cards that I created in the video for you. Both of them were really easy to do. All you need to do is just have a stack of cardstock ready to go and grab your sprays and just really have fun with these backgrounds. Here's a closer look at that brushed pewter spray stain. Just adds a really gorgeous shimmer to the front of the cards, but it doesn't take over the background. So I really love that brushed pewter. Now, another thing that you can do with your spray stains is, let's say you make a background and you just really weren't quite happy with how it turned out. Well, what you can do is die cut from that, which is what I did on the front of this card. This one, I did the spray stains on a background and die cut out the snowflakes and attached it to a background I created with the IMPERIA plate with which adds a bunch of piercings to it. Now, this is a card I had created originally on my own. Same thing as what I did on screen. I just switched out the sentiment. The one on the right has a sentiment from Holiday Sprigs that I heat embossed in white embossing powder on black cardstock. So there is one way that you can use, or two ways actually, that you can use your spray stains. Dust them off, have some fun with them, create some backgrounds. I will have all of the supplies that I used in today's video listed down below in the video description. Also, a link to my blog, which will have pictures of these cards that I created today, and also the 2 bonus ones that I had showed you as well. So happy December, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.